That is fine. The Curator. This is a eulogy. My mother passed away on September 21st of this year. She had told us that she was going to pass away, and she was worried on how we were going to feel. She said she had talked to her mother and her husband, who had died years before, and they were waiting for her. About a week earlier, on a Sunday, she woke up and she was anxious. She would call this discombobulated. But she was anxious, and she looked at my sister-in-law and said, I thought today was the day I was going to heaven. The 21st of September was a brilliant day. The sun was great, shining through blue sky. The sun was coming through a maple tree with the leaves turning and came through a big window across her bed. I was on one side of her bed. My brother and my other sister were on this side of the bed. It wasn't clear if she really could hear us, but we were just there with her. And then she was gone. And the house was full of people, but suddenly it felt like it had no life, that it was just empty. She had been in that house for 64 years and raised 6 kids in that house. The night before, Sunday night, the grandchildren were able to come and say goodbye to her. Again, it wasn't clear if she could really hear them. But to see all these grown young people lining her bed with tears, with kisses, and with longing glances, it was very hard for me to take all that. But it was all based on love, love that they had for my mother. My daughter Emma, I said, I'd always had a special relationship to my mom. She would always go up alone. She said, when I go to see Nan, I don't want to share her with anybody else. And she had a similar sense of humor. About 2 weeks before my mom passed, she went to Walmart and she got 2 buckets, pans, and all the soaps and fingernail polish. And she came up and gave my mom a pedicure and herself. And they sat there with their feet in their warm tubs, watching movies and just chatting. And this is what she liked the best about my mom. A few days later at the wake, my daughter and I were in the back of the room. My mom was up there in the casket, and we were saying, she does look beautiful. She has a great dress on and rosary beads. But Emma leaned over to me and said, but Dad, I'm the only one in the room that knows on her toes is tramp red. And at the burial, my daughter came up to me again and said, you know what Mom, Nan would say now? I said, oh no, I don't. She said, here's $5 for the gas. Now you go and spend it on yourself. She had my mom's sense of humor. I don't know what my mother did to deserve me as a son. I wasn't easy. There were 6 children, but I seemed to be the worst. I remember when I was 4 years old, we had a cat, a gray cat. I decided this cat would be better green. So I got the lid off the gallon of paint. I was able to dump the cat halfway the green paint. A little later on, she got a brand new thing for her bedspread. And it had all these little puffs. Well, I went and got the scissors, and I started to cut off all the little puffs. And then I got a knife for my birthday, and I decided that the door jambs would be look better round than with an edge, so it would run the house to round. My mom's way of punishing me is to not talk to me. She would ignore me. In fact, what she did at one point is she came up in frustration, hugged me, and said, Dennis, I'm just going to squeeze all the bad out of you. Well, that chance. When she was 85, she sent me a birthday card, and her birthday card said, I'll always remember this, if you saw yourself as other people saw you, you would be a much happier person. Now I'm 59 years old at that point, and she's still being my mother. She never gave up being my mother. Everyone loved being with my mom. The way it happened is, here's a couch and here's a black recliner, and we sat right next to her. She'd sit there, and she was only 88 pounds, but she'd have this beautiful glowing smile, and she'd take her hands and just take your hand, and she'd say, "So, how are you today? What's going on with you?" It was always about you. And she ingratiated herself with so many people that even the people who were her caregivers for a month were very upset when she had finally told them she had finally passed away. She also knit a lot. She knit hats, gloves, she made sandwiches, and those all went to the homeless shelter down in Providence. She would also donate hours and hours a week at the library because she liked working with books. And for about 20 years, she ran the program for the state of Rhode Island, sending audiobooks to the blind. She just did all of these things. A few days after she died, I went back to the house. It was empty now. We have 7 acres. We had gardens, we had sheep, we had pigs, we had a donkey for a while, a really funny donkey. And I walked around the land, and boy, the memories, you know, I did this here, this is where we did this. But what got to me more was when I walked around the house. And I went in all the rooms, and I opened up all the drawers and the doors, and I looked. There was almost nothing there. I was so surprised at how little she had. But what I did find, I'd open a drawer, and there were all these pictures, and Christmas cards, and birthday cards from us. Newspaper clippings in another drawer, pictures on the wall. And then in one place were all these little ceramic cups. Whenever we went on a trip, her souvenir was a ceramic cup. The whole house was a museum. It was a museum of her love. It was a museum of her heart. Everything represented something inside her. And that's why I call her a curator. There were 6 children, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and all these people had a very special place in her heart. We always felt it was just her and I. Nobody else existed. And now, she's gone. And if I want to remember her, if I want to see her, I look at my daughters. Because it's in my daughters, and even my wife. My wife lost her mom a long time ago, and my mom became her mom. I can see her courage. I can see her dedication to people. And I can see her sense of humor in my daughters. So, at this point, I think about my mother, and where is she? She is actually in my heart. She is me. I will never know what she gave, everything she gave me. That's beyond what I really realize. But friends, there's no greater honor that I can give you than to share with you the part of me that is my mother. Because I think you know something about her already. Her courage, her dedication, and finally, her belief that with enough love, anything is possible.